How's it going, folks? CR here. Now, I'm sure by now we've heard of the two mass shootings that took place last weekend. I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock not to have heard of them. They've been blasted all over the media. Kind of a pattern that happens nowadays. And reactions you'd expect are pretty much typically the same reactions. You have one group of people that is exploiting this to push their agenda. In fact, after the El Paso mass murder, not even before we had the body count, you had Beto O'Rourke talking about more gun control, and that his agenda, would have stopped this even before we had the final body count. How he figured it out in that short of a time without all the facts, it's beyond me. No, I mean, the fact of the matter is that we know that this guy is exploiting the victims to push his agenda. That's pretty obvious if you've paid attention to the guy. And by the way, El Paso was the district he was a representative in. Just a little food for thought. But we'll discuss a few more facts about this area later in this monologue. I want to talk about another thing that came out in the wake of this two mass murders. So Neil deGrasse Tyson tweeted this out, and he was absolutely right to do so. I think it was a good call. He is calling for people to put some perspective on the issue, look at data, and not get emotional over this, to think about it logically, wherever he stands on the issue. And it's a good thing that he tweeted this out. Unfortunately, we've gotten to the point where this is so politicized that even his basic call for sanity in this got him a lot of backlash. And he actually posted an apology on Facebook for this tweet, which he should have never done. He shouldn't have had to apologize for this. But because you have people with a very loud megaphone who are more interested in exploiting this tragedy to push their agenda, you have things like this, responses like this from the two-hit wonder known as Smash Mouth. I guess Smash Mouth has forgotten that they're the equivalent of court jesters in this whole situation, obviously. Yeah, instead of discussing the facts and trying to look at the situation honestly and intelligently, they would rather scream "fuck off" like that dude in the vape shop. These are the type of people who will act like preschool children throwing a fit in the store in front of their parents because they didn't get their way, and then wonder why there are guys like me that hold them with contempt. Now, seriously, to all the smash mouths in the world, you wonder why people know you don't really give a damn about the victims, that you're just out there to scream and shout and virtue signal. Well, this is why right here. You don't want to actually look at facts. You don't want to examine evidence. You don't want to examine data and try to come to a logical solution, something that might actually be effective. You just want to shout, scream, and demand more gun laws because, the TV told you so, or maybe somebody in your little insulated circle told you so, told you that these gun laws would stop all this, which it won't. And then You guys act all shocked when guys like me mock you for this, even though you've already thrown the first 10 proverbial punches in this. And the fact of the matter is that I don't feel bad for you at all. You earned it. You earned the mockery. You earned people insulting you. Good going. Another person I'd like to give mention to is Dan Bongino. For those of you who don't know, Dan Bongino was a New York police officer from 95 to 99. He then went on to be a Secret Service agent. I believe he was with the agency until 2011. He had to come out and speak out against the political exploitation of events like these yet again. And it is a shame he has to do this. Unfortunately, with the environment we have right now, it has to be said. Something that shouldn't have to be said, but it is. Which is very telling on the situation we are in this country. There are not enough Dan Bonginos. I'm just going to say that. Seriously though, guys, this type of strategy is not going to come up with solutions. This type of strategy is just used to push an agenda, which is really not a solution to the problem. It's not going to make things any better. In fact, there's a good chance it's going to make things worse. Just so you know. And the people who would exploit these events to push their agenda are people who know their solution is not a good idea. They wouldn't be able to get it passed when people are thinking about this logically. And of course you're going to have the very same people who were upset by statements that Dan Bongino made, people like me make, against them politicizing tragedies to push their agenda. They will often claim that people like us have come up with nothing, no solutions, which is completely untrue. The fact of the matter is that we do have proposals. They're just not the proposals that these guys want. So they stick their fingers in their ear and go, la 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 la, I can't hear you, you gun nut, extremist, terrorist. The fact of the matter is there have been several solutions, several proposals. One such proposal would be ending gun-free zones, basically reducing the number of viable targets for these people. And I am very well aware that El Paso, that Walmart there, was not a gun-free zone. In fact, I carry in that Walmart whenever I go in there. I just wasn't in there that day. However, this is also Beto O'Rourke's district, so there aren't too many people with a license to carry in this district. There are not too many people who want to legally own firearms in this district. I know there are going to be some people on the left say, but I'm a leftist, I own a firearm, I have a license to carry. Well, great, you're in the minority. Most of the people within your political spectrum don't believe in things like license to carry, self-defense, and stuff like that nature. I don't know what to tell you. However, still you have a lot of people who refuse to take the steps necessary to protect themselves and those around them. And that's okay, this is a free country. However, where you cross the line with me is when you are trying to dictate to me or other honest, responsible citizens in this country on how, when, and if they're going to be allowed to protect themselves. That would include the tools. Another proposal that was brought up came from somebody I knew in the Army. This person's retired now, but he posted on Facebook his proposal. This proposal was basically to make sure that in high school, everybody gets the training they need to carry a sidearm on them. If they don't pass this training, then they don't graduate from high school. They basically either have to pass this training or have to keep taking it until they pass before they graduate high school. Once they turn 21, they will be required to have a sidearm on them and ammo at all times while out in public. If they do not have that sidearm on them, then they will be fined for not doing so, for failing to do so. To be honest with you, I think this proposal is far more effective than what a lot of people have been bringing up so far. That proposal right there would put a stop to a lot of crime, to include mass shootings if implemented and enforced. Many people today would object to this. They would say, but this isn't constitutional. Well, it is constitutional. You just didn't bother to read the Constitution or try to understand what it says. That's just the bottom line up front. You're either going off of what you feel the Constitution should say, or some other misinformation that somebody else gave you. Either they were incorrect or they were flat out lying, one of the two. Then if they finally did read the Constitution and understand it, they would then go and say, but the Founding Fathers really never forced anybody to have a gun. They never had any sort of law requiring that. Well, you'd be wrong on that one too. Go read the Second Militia Act of 1972. Yes, our founders did require people to have the military loadout of the day, and they had to provide that themselves. So yes, it would be well within the Congress's bounds, and in fact in the spirit of our founders, to pass such a law that would require every able-bodied male ages 18 to 65 to purchase an M16 A2 or higher, to purchase all the ammunition and magazines required, to have a specific set of TA-50 that they have to purchase. And by the way, TA-50 is the web gear, the helmet, the rucksack, everything like that. And then have biannual inspections of said gear to ensure that you're maintaining the gear properly and that you have it ready to go and that you are training. They haven't changed that part of the Constitution yet. So yes, my acquaintance who's retired Army, their proposal falls well within the bounds of the Constitution. Now, there was a major objection to my acquaintance's proposal. The person who objected said, well, people shouldn't be forced to carry a gun, and we really shouldn't be teaching anything about firearms in school because, well, quite frankly, there are only 5 people I trust to teach my kids about firearm safety. This person then went on to say that we just need to make sure that we have more laws to make sure that mentally insane and criminals don't get their hands on guns. This person is basically saying my form of authoritarianism is not only right but necessary. Your form of authoritarianism should not be accepted or tolerated. Furthermore, this person seemed to be oblivious to the fact that, well, we already have laws on the books prohibiting certain people from owning firearms. You know, we've tried this. It doesn't work. Hasn't worked in other countries. It's not working in the U.S. And in fact, it should be pretty clear at this point these restrictions are designed to chip away at the legal ability for private citizens to own firearms. And I can go in and spell it out, but that would be another video. To further add to this topic, I want to bring up something that T.J. Kirk, aka the Amazing Atheist, said after the Christchurch shooting, and it's been a while since I've seen that video, so I know I'm not saying this quote verbatim, but he said that, growing up, you're brought up to believe that the good guys will win, and it turns out reality is the opposite. Well, my point in carrying a firearm, being licensed to carry, being trained to carry this, as well as encouraging others to do so, is to ensure the good guys have a better shot at winning. I don't believe that the good guys are going to win 100% of the time, but when you start immediately incapacitating your good guys with these stupid restrictions, discouraging them to carry, and so on and so forth, you just make it easier for the bad guys to go in there unopposed. And I think it's a good time to bring up a series of conversations I've had with somebody I personally know over the years. Now, this person is very much so a FUD. They think the only reason why you should have a gun is, for hunting or something like that. They don't seem to believe in guns for personal protection. I think that hunting gun needs to be licensed and registered. There's no purpose for somebody to have an AR-15. That sort of nature. Of course, this person will always tell me, well, I support the Second Amendment, but, we need X restriction or Y restriction. To give you a little bit of a knowledge of how this person is. This person, when I first started out carrying, when I got my license to carry, well, at that time it was called the concealed handgun license, they asked me, well, why are you carrying your gun on me? Why are you carrying your gun on you? You don't need a gun to go grocery shopping. You don't need a gun to go to dinner. You don't need a gun for X, Y, or Z. Well, suffice to say, a few years later, there was a mass shooting in an area. I was going up to that area afterwards for a business trip. It was work-related. Anyway, this person specifically called me to say, well, you aren't carrying your gun with you, are you? There was a mass shooting there. I'm like, yeah, let me guess. Gun-free zone, wasn't it? You're telling me I should not carry my gun there to a place where there was a mass shooting going on. You're telling me that I should be completely fucking defenseless. Got it. Well, we didn't like that one. And then years later, there was another mass shooting. It was highly publicized. Of course, this person was getting into an argument with me, his brothers, some of my friends, over this whole deal. This person was going, well, you don't care about the children, or if it was your family, you wouldn't be talking that way. Suffice to say, after I tried to explain the guy the situation and the point of view, and other people did too, he didn't want to listen. So I finally, after all else failed, I told him, look, let's face facts here. You don't really give a shit about any of those children killed, do you? You don't give a shit. People have presented you alternate solutions that don't involve infringing on our rights any further than we have to. People, including myself, have explained to you that your solutions don't work. You have zero evidence that they work, and all you're doing is using this fallacious logic and cherry-pick data to try to sit there and convince everybody else. I think this is more about you just don't think people should have this stuff. You think that if somebody's going to have a certain item, that they should have to go through a bunch of government hoops. You're not being realistic. You're not being reasonable like you're saying nobody else is. You're not being reasonable like you claim you are. I don't think you give a damn about it. This person has not ever brought this up to me again. I don't think this person probably wants to get into this argument again with me. And I hated to have to take the gloves like that off on somebody I knew personally. However, on this topic, they didn't want to be honest. They didn't want to be civil. They didn't want to be reasonable. So, I mean, what else do you do? The fact of the matter is that those of us with our licenses to carry, those of us who carry religiously, who are trained, we keep our training up to date. We do take our personal safety and security, as well as those around us, very seriously. This is actually not a game to us, despite what many of these people calling for more gun laws seem to think. Furthermore, most of us wish that you guys, those who are responsible, are of age, no prohibiting factors, would actually step up a bit and take a little bit more responsibility for your own personal security. Get your license to carry, get the training you need, get the firearm you need, carry that firearm. That would definitely help out a bit if you guys would take some responsibility for your own security. And don't get me wrong, I do understand there are extenuating circumstances. Maybe you live in a state like New York where, it's difficult, if not impossible, to get a handgun license just to own that handgun. Maybe you work in a gun-free zone and you can't legally carry that firearm into that office space. Maybe you have a prohibiting factor on your record. Maybe you messed up in your younger years and got hit with a felony or something like that. Maybe you have a mental condition that it probably would be better if you didn't have a firearm. Okay, I can understand these situations. I am talking specifically about the people who are able-bodied, though. And furthermore, if you have one of those conditions, you probably do still want people to be able to carry their firearms regularly, because that's an added bit of safety for you. I understand there are exception states like California where, the people who do have their concealed handgun licenses probably aren't going to protect your life with their concealed handgun, specifically because the state is put so much red tape around self-defense, so much legal liability around self-defense, that they're probably only going to save their life and not going down for you. However, I think in most circumstances, people with their license to carry probably will help out others if their life is in danger, and they can clearly tell that, and they can clearly assess the situation. So I think at this point, it's pretty clear where I stand on this. Our gun laws are way too restrictive. They're at the point where they are putting people in danger with how restrictive they are. You cannot rely on the police to be there to protect you. This has been proven over and over again, not just with mass shootings, but with other crimes as well. Supreme Court has already ruled the police have no obligation to protect you personally. The fact of the matter is that I'm at the point where if it came down to every able-bodied person over 21 had to carry a firearm on them at all times, or it came down to even the current restrictions, I would go with the former. This whole, it's the current year, well, you really don't need X type of gun, or we really should have X type of law, common sense gun laws, and, well, it really shouldn't be that way, or not arguments. The fact of the matter is that mass shootings are a symptom of a much larger series of problems. Or at least I think so anyway. I mean, you go on social media and you'll see people posting videos of themselves doing stupid stuff for fun, for attention, for notoriety, for their own narcissistic 15 minutes of fame. You have people doing things like licking ice cream and putting it back, posting that video to social media, among other things. Personal responsibility seems to have gone out the window, it seems, with a lot of people. It's always somebody else's fault. You have people who got college degrees that weren't worth the paper they were printed on, can't find a job that pays high enough to pay it back, and it's somehow everyone else's responsibility to pay it back. You have people doing dumb shit and getting arrested for dumb shit, and of course it's not their fault. I mean, it's the police's fault. You have people who cross the border illegally, then they get caught by Border Patrol, and those with kids get separated from those children. And you have people here who act like this is the Border Patrol's fault, even though the Border Patrol did not force these people to come across the border illegally. They chose to do so, and they chose to take their children with them. You have people who will have children that they know they can't afford. And these people will say, you don't know how hard it is to raise a child in a single-parent household on minimum wage, yada, 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 when the fact of the matter is that they should have been more responsible with their own lives to begin with, but yet now it's somehow society's responsibility to take care of them. Our desire for freedom and the rule of law have been replaced by dependency by a good chunk of this nation. All you have to do is actually look at the Democratic primary debates, and it's real easy to tell. The people who are leading it are promising free stuff they have no plan on how to pay for. They're promising insanity, such as decriminalizing our border, among other things. So yeah, we do have quite a few problems in this country. And while we do have quite a few problems in this country, I'm going to say that we're still the best country out there. And I understand now many of us still possess those American values that made us the envy of the world. With that being said, we are seeing an increasing number of people, an increasing number of Americans in this country that don't hold those values. With that being said, I'm going to direct you to look at the Tytler cycle, as it's called. So, I think if you haven't heard of that, you really should look it up and read it. It's actually not more than a paragraph, so it should be easy for even the laziest person to read. So with this being said, I think this video is run on a little bit longer than I wanted it to run on. So I'm going to end this here. Y'all take it easy out there and have a great day.